accomplishment and progress is also dopamine, and our brain lacks it. So we're constantly trying to find it. Now it makes sense. Like if growth is attached to progress, and if I see numbers going up or if I see myself improving, that gives me the dopamine hit that I need to keep going.
Welcome to Successful with ADHD. I'm Brooke Schnittman. Let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Successful with ADHD. Today I have the big and powerful Eugene Yao. You likely know him from ADHD Founder on Instagram, where he creates videos to make people feel less weird and alone. He also, you probably don't know this, founded 3 startups and recently turned into a content creator. So you know him on ADHD Founder, but he went from 0 to 1 million followers on Instagram in 6 months. Warm welcome, Eugene.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's really a pleasure because I had started following your content when you were less than 100,000. And I remember you celebrating that. And like just quickly, it doubled, tripled, quadrupled because the content that you shared was so original. It wasn't just taking other people's content and repurposing it. You literally made a unique story about ADHD, and it was relatable, and it's fun. It's really fun. So it's a pleasure to have you here. And absolutely. So talk to me. You recently found out you had ADHD, right?
Oh yeah, actually, yeah, pretty recent. So this was August last year.
Okay.
But before then, so I left my startup in May last year. I was doing a B2B e-commerce startup, and I didn't feel like it was meaningful because it was like, hey, I'm helping other businesses make more money. So basically, I'm like, no, I can't do this for the next 10 years. I left it. I stepped down, sold my equity, had a bit of cash so that I went from New Zealand, where I'm from, to US in May. Then I was like, hey, what problems can I solve? I want to solve something meaningful. And then there was one thing that I knew that was like really problematic for me is I struggle to focus at work. And I'm like, I'm sure a lot of people can't focus at work as well. So in May, I started digging in. I'm like, I did a lot of research, and guess what came up? ADHD, ADHD, ADHD. So because of ADHD, I'm like, hey, let's actually get myself tested. So in New Zealand, I phoned everywhere, and the wait time for it was about 6 months. So I was like,
Wow.
no, I can't do that.
I can't wait 6 months.
Yeah,
I
I
need
can't.
to know now.
Yes. And I basically called some US, what do you call them? Psychiatrists. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, yep, I can do next week. Yeah. So basically but you have to be in the States. So I flew early August or mid August, and then I got diagnosed with combined type ADHD.
Yeah. I was going to ask how you could do that inter-country in the US, but that makes sense. You have to fly to the US to get the diagnosis. That makes a lot of sense. So ADHD combined type, right? You felt you weren't really motivated and lacked a purpose in working for other companies. You wanted to start something where you felt it could be relatable for what you were going through and people out there that were experiencing.
Yeah. So I really never worked for other people. I think I didn't know I had ADHD, but I just knew that I couldn't work for other people. So straight after college, I did my own startup, and I was on my 3rd startup, and that's where I'm like, hey, that's the B2B e-commerce. I'm like, it's not meaningful, so I left it. So
Got
Wow,
it.
what's the question again that we were?
No, that's okay. That's okay. No, you just answered it. So you were doing this work that wasn't for other people. It was a startup, so you do have the investors that you have to prove yourself to, but it wasn't meaningful for
It
you.
wasn't meaningful. I think I'm driven by impact. Well, I used to be driven by like status, power, and money. What that was like,
Hmm.
what was going. But I realized once you have a little bit of that, I didn't get far with my startup,
Hmm.
but I just got a taste of like what status power means. And it was just pleasure. It was just short term. You get it, you feel good for a day, your ego gets boosted, and then tomorrow is another day. So then what's the meaning of life if I have to keep
Hmm.
chasing that pleasure for one day of happiness and 5 days of pain or 6 days of pain? So I'm like, okay, I need to do something meaningful. I want to wake up every morning knowing that I'm making a difference. So that's why I'm like, okay, I can't do this anymore.
I'm so happy that you said that because I think, and I know that lots of people on social media who are 7-figure business owners, 8-figure business owners are saying, follow my path and you can become rich quick, right? And it is so ego driven. And you are proof that once you get there, if you're not doing something that you can put your head on a pillow at night that serves you, that gives purpose and impact to you and the world, then you're going to get there and then you're going to be like, okay, what's next? Right? All
I'm
that
more
hard work for what?
I'm a type of person. It's not like follow my path and you'll get millions of dollars. I'm like follow my path and you'll reach fulfillment and happiness. And I have like a path to get there. So I like yeah, that's like basically what I want to help other people with. Not like hey, how do you make more money, but how do you be more fulfilled inside?
I love that. Okay. So you get your diagnosis, you found fulfillment, you gave purpose to the community.
Mm.
So tell me about this path that you're talking about.
Before I left my startup, the one that I didn't find meaningful, I had to really find myself. So that was step one. How it happened was I was doing the B2B startup and my mentor, he asked me, why are you doing the startup? And then like I dug in. I'm like, hey, why am I doing the startup? And the conclusion came to money, status, and power. It means like, oh, look, it's an ego boost. It feels good. I can make money. I look good. But then it felt so empty. It felt really empty. So to discover myself and who I am, I went camping in New Zealand. I went camping by myself. My co-founder basically dropped me off in a forest. And then I built my tent. There was no one around. There's no signal. It was about 2 hours walk from the closest signal. And then I just bought a few books. And then basically what I call it is the ultimate dopamine detox. Yeah. So there was no shower as well. So I showered by the stream every day, which is really
Mm,
helpful because it's cold. It's a cold stream. It stimulates your brain. It gives
a
you more
cold
dopamine.
plunge.
Yeah, basically. So went there with the intention of staying for 1 month. So I had like baked beans every day, and but then it took probably like 10 days to realize. I looked back on my past. Yeah, look back on my past, and I realized I don't like money. I don't like status. I don't like these things. And what I like is I'm a compassionate person. I'm adventurous, and I'm growth orientated. So growth startups is always a thing because I love growing. I love seeing myself yeah, I love seeing myself growing. The second one is adventure. Adventure is like I like taking big risks. I think adventure is really tied to ADHD. At that time, I didn't know I had ADHD, but like adventure was a huge one. And then compassion, which is like the feeling of me doing something good for the world. That feeling lingers in me for a long time. So those three are the core values. And I'm like, okay, how do I live a more meaningful life? Is I optimize for these three values. So yeah, when I went from camping, I went back to New Zealand. I went back to my home. That's when I was like, okay, I need to leave my startup. And I think things started to change from there. My connections. My meaningful connections got better. Like I know who I need to talk to. I dropped a lot of friends, probably like 90% of my friends I had to like, because like the old Eugene was a little bit toxic, I would say, not who I wanted to be. It's because how
Mhm.
society is crafted, you have to put on a mask and you have to blend in. So that
Mhm.
wasn't, so that's number one, changing my friends. And then I started sleeping better. That's another one. Started exercising. I've actually been doing cold showers for the last 3 years. So that was like a very huge point. I've also been meditating for 3 years, and that really, really helps. Drinking a lot of water. So I think to answer your question is like basically you do everything that your old ancestors are doing from like thousands or like your hunter gatherer blood. And if you do all of those things, you will feel fulfilled and happy. And hunter gatherers, they basically have a community where you're serving that community. You're going outside to hunt for meat or hunt or gather for food, and you go back and you give it back to your community and you feel great. It's not like the hunter gatherer, you go out to earn
And
money
then
and
you eat it all.
yeah, and you share it and you eat it all and you get the dopamine that you need and you're just so happy because you found the food. So like these are the simple things that society is missing. Like I
Mhm.
see so many things that I'm like, yep, if we walk this route, it's going to be very bad. But, capitalism. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, well, I think you shared a lot of important things to think about because we are built in a neurotypical world.
mm,
So society tells us if you work hard, you will do well, right?
mm,
So, but it doesn't say why you
yeah.
should work hard in what you're working in. So I think for you, the key was you found your core values, you found your intrinsic motivation. And once you discovered your purpose, then you were able to calm your central nervous system
Mm,
by doing the cold plunge, by meditating, by drinking lots of water, by drinking calming tea, by being with people who lift you up rather than bring you down.
yeah.
So you found your people, you calmed your nervous system, and you found something that's interesting. And ADHD is an interest based nervous system. So if you're interested in something, but you also have intrinsic motivation for that interest, you're sustainable for a lot longer than if you didn't have that intrinsic motivation, but it was just extrinsic motivation because that's what society told you should
Yeah.
do.
That's 100%. That's one thing that I didn't mention is that once you have a purpose, the pain makes sense. Like the cold shower, the exercise, the changing friend group, the harder stuff start to make sense. But if you don't have a purpose, like what's the point of doing these things? You can just chase pleasure because pleasure is the next best thing. But if you have a purpose, you're like, okay, doing these things will better my health, better my mind, better this to reach that goal. And it feels, yeah, intrinsic motivation.
And I think that also, like, you could have a purpose, but you could also forget about your hierarchy of needs,
Mm,
which is the dopamine exposure, the being around people that lift you up, the exercise, the movement, the water, all those things. So you were able to find the the activation to do those things and create boundaries in your day to do those things as well because you know how important they are.
yes.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, with all that being said, you also built an Instagram account in 6 months to 1 million people, and you basically have no stories. You don't post every day.
Mm, no.
Tell me about that. Like, I
Mm,
know the value in each of your posts, but how did you do it? I'm sure there's lots of people listening right now who are looking up to you saying, I know him. He's the guy in the colorful sweatshirt. Usually.
yes, usually. So in my university days or college days, I was in filming. So I did a bit of acting. I went back to China, where I'm from, to do 4 different TV dramas. And also I did theater. I did 1 or 2 movies. Yeah. And then that gave me like a little bit of acting skills. And with acting skills, it comes very handy into content creation. So I
Mhm.
think I had a bit of background into that. And I'm less, well, I was hugely camera shy when I was acting because there's a lot of people like watching me like, hey, you got to get this right. You got to get this right. So huge performance anxiety. But now, because no one's around me, I'm filming by myself. I just do 10 different takes. I just do it until I feel like it's good. So it makes it a lot easier to like craft something. And also because of my ADHD brain, I'm really good at pattern recognition. So I'm pretty sure not even in my niche, I'm one of the fastest Instagram content creators that grew from 0 to 1 mil in less than 6 months. So
Ever. Yeah.
yeah, I have not seen anyone come close to that. So I don't want to give myself a title. So Instagram, I would love that title. I think the reason why I grew really fast is I looked at what's going on on Instagram and why people are going viral. And then I can kind of spot the difference in how they edit their content and what type of comedy is it. So I basically looked around and I'm like, hey, this is why it went viral. Let's try this format. Let's try that format. And with the core goal of making people with, well, my mission is to make people with ADHD feel seen, feel less lonely and less weird about their symptoms. But that's a whole nother story. That's like related to my childhood. And I know that if I make people feel like that, they'll be less stressed, less depressed, and they'll feel more accepted in the society. So with that core goal, I'm like, okay, what type of comedic skits can I do? Because people with ADHD, they love fast, funny stuff, or else they're just going to lose attention. So how do I combine those things and still make it within my mission? So that's basically what I did. And I'm like, okay, I'll make it funny and at the same time make them feel seen. So I tried multiple different skits and one of them started working and I doubled down on that one until it stopped working.
Mm.
Yeah. So it was like December last year. That's when I started. No followers. And then when it hit January, I got like 10K. End of January, I got like 50K. And then February, I got 150K. And then March was the one that blew up. I got like 400K. I'm like, what is happening? The interesting thing is just for the people that out there, 10K followers versus 1 mil followers for me, I think I was happier on 10 because now that I'm on 1 mil, I'm looking at my view count. So the ego is kicking in. So people might think that, hey, wow, he's at 1 mil. Oh, I imagine if I was 1 mil, I'm happy. No, you're not. It doesn't make a difference. So I'm gonna lose track again. What was I saying?
Yeah, you were saying how quickly you grew, but you didn't hyper focus. I took this away from what you were saying. You didn't get obsessed with the view count at 10K, but at 1 mil, you're obsessed with the view count.
Yeah, because I have to keep it up, and yeah, at 10K, probably until 200K, I didn't really care about my views, but now it's like you have to be in it. If you're not in it, then how do you improve? So like I'm constantly. So there was 2 weeks where I didn't look at views and I just created content. And then 2 weeks later, I look back, they were all low performing. So I'm like, oh God, I have to look at views. And it does take a toll on your mental health when you know that you're putting out work that isn't getting a lot of views, but that's just the nature of content creation. But when I was like 10K followers, low views or high views, I'm fine. But now when I get low views, I think the algorithm is pushing me less. which is
Mm.
also affecting my mission. So,
Mm-hmm.
and also I became a full-time content creator. So I'm
Mm.
making a living out of this. So like there's
So
a
your
lot of
eggs are
things.
in one basket.
Yeah. So when I had lower followers, money wasn't like a big issue because I wasn't full-time. I had something else going on. But now that it's full-time, I think there's like I'll say like 70% of it is my mission. Now 30% is trying to pay rent. So it's like a little bit of balancing both.
Yeah, thank you for being so honest about it. I mean, when you were first talking, I was like, okay, yeah, you followed your purpose. You've had a mission. You had metacognition to know when to stop doing something and start doing something else. And it's so real, like what you're sharing with the 1 mil, and now you're hyper obsessed with the view count because that's directly tied into you paying your rent or not.
Mm,
And I know that you are going to innovate out of this. I know you will.
thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for just being so raw and honest. Again, people think that once they make it, whatever that is, they're going to be great, right? But you literally threw everything into this because it was working. But because you've shifted in the past, I know you're going to shift again. So, because we've had some conversations prior to this, do you want to share maybe some things that you're up to make some money and to continue to provide purpose?
Yes. So one strength that I found is that I'm great at creating content. I'm good at telling a story. So I know that I'm going to do content for the rest of my life. Why am I going to do content is because it actually impacts people. And how I see society going is AI is coming in. But what is AI good at? AI is good at feeding you the right things at the right time. The future will be AI algorithm for TikTok, Instagram. They will give you exactly a lot of dopamine. Like everything, pretty faces, pretty everything, pretty stories. The best stories crafted for Brooke. So in that world, even Netflix can craft its own AI movie. In that world, there's so much pleasure going around. So there's so much dopamine going around. And once you get a lot of dopamine into your system, you have no motivation to do anything else. Why go out with friends? Why go exercise? Why do these things that the hunter gatherer times do? Like in the hunter gathering times, once you hunt down the meat and eat the meat, that's your dopamine fix. Now we're getting it. Boo, boo, boo. So that's a society that I see.
Mm-hmm.
And I can very clearly see it because of how capitalism is. So you can
Mm-hmm.
see that at TikTok, you can see that in YouTube, even in LinkedIn right now is doing shorts like the reels,
Mm-hmm.
short form. So
Mm-hmm.
I can see LinkedIn in a few, maybe like 1 or 2 years, it's just going to be a bunch of videos. So if we're going into that society where it's consistently stimulating our dopamine system, then how do we actually combat that? So I'm actually building a startup right now, and the startup is basically a accountability partner app. So what we do is we match you up with another accountability buddy who also struggles with the same task that you're trying to do. So once you have a lot of once your dopamine is depleted because of AI's algorithm, you don't want to clean. You don't want to go out for a walk. You don't want to go to the gym. So what my accountability buddy app does, and I have two lovely co-founders that is doing it with me, matches you up with a person and you keep each other accountable. So it's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
body doubling. So if you're, for example, cleaning, you can either text them and keep each other accountable or even call them while you're cleaning. So I have my own accountability buddy where it's one-on-one matching. And what happens is I call them every Tuesday at 8. And then it was so amazing. Like it's usually a half an hour session, but we clean for an hour and a half. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
you're doing things, you're getting things done. My apartment looks beautiful. That's how I keep my apartment clean. And now our bond is so much stronger. I went traveling with him like twice. So it's like, so what we're trying to create here is not just accountability partner. We're trying to create meaningful connections. And
Mm.
I think that's what's lacking in the future is that, especially for guys, like it's a lonely world. We don't know how to be vulnerable. And even like I'm a vulnerable person, but when I can sense the other guy has a little bit of masculine energy, I tend to not open up because I know it will scare them away.
Hmm.
But yeah, so basically what I'm doing right now is I'm building an accountability partner app.
I love that. So you're taking someone who has the same need in the body double realm, but you're looking to really make a valuable impact on each other and relationship where you want to do it for the other person. It's meaningful and it's purposeful because you connect with the person.
And yes, and you grow with each other. And yeah, it can be used for anything. Like, for example, content creation. I can match you up with a content creator that's wanting to create content, and they'll be like, hey, have you done your 5 content this week? Like, hey, what's stopping you? So,
And you can brainstorm together,
mm,
which is so helpful for people with ADHD. You can talk it out like, oh, this is what I'm thinking. Can you hold space for me?
yes.
It's great. So is it launched or is it in the
So we
process?
will, it's in the process of launching. We launched a beta that's the cleaning, and the cleaning went well. So we're now opening up to like exercise and also side hustle. Yeah. So we don't know when we're going to launch yet, but it will be sometime maybe next month. We're going to do a soft launch, but it's not going to be like to millions or like hundreds of people. We're just going to select like a cohort of people, and then we're going to just slowly expand that way.
Awesome. I just came back from an ADHD coach retreat where there were a lot of new ADHD coaches, and I was talking about business building. And I know, like, logically, what I'm about to say makes sense, but when you're so hyper focused and drained and, comparing yourself to the stats, it doesn't make sense. But going back to the initial point is like, if you look at the metrics, which you did with Instagram, you see that the views are going down. You see that you're not able to pay your rent, right? Or maybe you won't continue to be able to in the way that you thought you would, right? To pivot, to start something new before the problem gets too big. And I appreciate that about you. It's that metacognition that is not so easy with ADHD, especially when ego's involved. So, everyone, you're looking at a person who's raw, who's vulnerable. Eugene has over 1 million followers, and he's telling you it's okay. It's okay. You can pivot at any time. If you have 2 million, it's not going to necessarily give you tons of money to live on, right? Like you have to continue to look at the stats and innovate and be able to pivot fast.
Hmm. So yeah, I'll consider myself like raw and vulnerable, but I actually didn't see that content creation, making money in content creation is a lot harder than I initially thought. So I wanted to do a startup. So we started doing this startup about like 4 months ago. Yeah, so it's still going. It's going good, and yeah, we'll be launching it probably next month sometime. So slide into my DMs if you want to get access.
ADHD founder. Eugene, what would you say is like the number one thing that you would recommend to people listening who want to be successful in any way, shape, or form with ADHD?
Um, if we're defining success societally, which is, I think, more the power, money, status way of success, I don't know if I can give a lot of advice on that. But what I can give advice on is, if you find your purpose and you find who you are and you love doing what you're doing, and that is attached to a little bit of monetary value, and you keep doing that, that will compound. And what I like to say is, you want to find your ikigai. For those that don't know what ikigai is there's 4 different sections. So first section is what you love doing, what you're good at, what you can make money out of, and also what the how you can serve the world, so what the world needs. So if you have all those fulfilled, you can kind of put these 4 sections into what you're doing right now. To give you a quick example is, if you are in a 9 to 5 where it's you are a like a analyst, right? Do you love doing that? If the answer is no, you're not an ikigai. Are you really good at doing it? If the answer is yes, you got one. Does it serve the world? If the company doesn't serve the world, you're just making money. It's not impactful. So you might need to reconsider. Forgot what the 4th one is. Oh yeah, if you love doing it. Oh, did I already say that?
No, the money.
Oh, yes, the money. Can it make you money? Is it enough? Like, what I mean by enough is, it's not like you want to be $1 million, because that's attached to ego again. Like, is enough for you to live a happy life? If it is, that box is checked as well. So if you have all 4 checked, stay. But if you have all 4 checked and you're like, I still want more money, because you got to really question why. Like, who are your friends? Are your friends like also millionaires? Is that why you want to be a millionaire? Like, question why. Is what I would say.
Yeah, I love that. And I would also attach the loving not only to purpose, passion, and like strength, but also like, is there room for growth? I think with ADHD, like, you will not love something long term if you can't grow with the company, or you can't grow in your position, or you can't grow as an entrepreneur and be creative, right?
Is that a thing, like ADHD
Yes.
and growth? Because I
Yes,
thought adventure as my core value is an ADHD thing. I didn't think that
it is.
was. So
It
growth is
is.
like a really, oh wow, no, damn, my whole personality is just ADHD.
Well, think about it. Why do people with ADHD jump from job to job every 2 to 3 years? Maybe because the job
Damn.
excitement,
Yeah.
maybe it's because the job is not the right job for them, but
Yeah.
maybe it's also because they don't see an opportunity to grow in it.
Oh.
If you ask an ADHD or why they've stayed in the same role, like a millennial ADHD, I'm not talking like baby boomer, millennial or Gen Z. If you ask them why they've stayed in the same job for 10 years, I guarantee you there's growth there.
I just made the connection. Okay, so accomplishment and progress is also dopamine, and our brain lacks it. So we're constantly trying to find it. Now it makes sense. Like, if growth is attached to progress, and if I see numbers going up, or if I see myself improving, that gives me the dopamine hit that I need to keep going. Ah, damn. Okay, so my first value is growth, is also an ADHD thing. Second value, adventure, ADHD. Okay, compassion, it could be because we're empathetic. Empathetic. Yeah, we
Yes,
have a lot of
that's
empathy.
the right word.
So yeah, my 3 values is just ADHD values. Oh god.
Yeah. And I would also say that like the dopamine, huge, right? But that also gives like, by you seeing that you're, because we are dopamine deficient, right? So you see that reward, it's euphoric.
Mm,
Dr. Hallowell talks about how seeing the reward or having someone say, you're doing an amazing job and you value their opinion, right? Like that is so euphoric compared to rejection sensitive dysphoria.
mm,
So we need both. We need someone to say, you're doing a good job, Eugene. Great job, pat on the back. And you need to define what a good job is as
mm.
well and connect to that good job. I love that. Eugene, thank you so much for coming on Successful with ADHD today. Is there anything else besides your accounts that you would like to share today and leave our listeners with?
I would say that for those that is optimized on pleasure, like if you optimize on pleasure, you like scrolling these things, you can feel when it's pleasure and you can feel when it's fulfillment. So I like to say that for those of you that are optimizing on pleasure, which is like scrolling Netflix for hours at a day, I feel like if you were to dig inside to find what you truly want to do and find that purpose, those pleasure will slowly go away. And finding purpose is not easy. It takes a lot of time. I'm not saying like you should find it tomorrow. I'm saying to be aware that there is something within that you can actually find who you want to be and why you want to be that. And once you find that purpose, you'll stop just consuming pleasure. And that I would say is the most life changing thing for your mental health or your life.
I love that. Thank you. I agree with everything that you're saying. And I would also add at the end, like, do that reparative work, guys. Like, once you find your purpose, once you calm your nervous system, because of all the negative messages we receive before the age of 10, the 20,000 negative messages that an ADHDer consumes, there's work to do. So, whether it be coaching or counseling, like, get the work, because we have traumatic stuff that need to be addressed too.
Yes.
Eugene, how can people find you?
They can find me on ADHD Founder. So there's at ADHD Founder on Instagram. And my email is also there. So if you want to reach me, it's right there.
Awesome. Thank you again. Value your time. And I can't wait to hear what comes from the Accountability Buddy app that you and the two co-founders are creating. And I hope to try it out soon.
I'm so excited to launch it. Thank you so much, Brooke. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Successful with ADHD. I hope it helped you on your journey. And if you need any additional support for you or a loved one with ADHD, feel free to reach out to us at coachingwithbrooke.com and all social media platforms at Coaching with Brooke. And remember, it's Brooke with an E. Thanks again for listening. See you next time.